Okay, we are live on UGTV and YouTube.
Rocky, do we have everyone on?
It looks like we do.
I think YouTube is ready.
It is.
Thank you. All right, before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that due to COVID-19, commissioners, staff, and public are attending by way of conference call. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak to the public that is participating so they know who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and his current guidance from Kansas Attorney General. Now call the meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call. Philbrook,
Here.
Bynum,
Here.
Burrows,
Here.
Townsend,
Here.
McKiernan,
Here.
Ramirez,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Kane,
Here.
Markley,
Here.
Walters,
Here.
Alvey.
Here. The invocation is being given by Commissioner Paul Johnson of Faith Deliverance Church of God in Christ. Please stand, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Gracious and eternal God, our Savior, we come to you this evening as leaders of this community, Kansas City, Kansas, and Wyandotte County. We invoke your presence into our agenda. We have many layers of challenges set before us. Budget shortfalls, a worldwide pandemic, mounting racial tensions in our country, and any number of issues that are added to that. And so we look to you, oh God, our God. Give us your wisdom to lead this community, in the words of the prophet Micah, to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with you, oh God. We pray this in the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of
The
the
flag
United States of America and to the republic
For
for which it stands, one nation,
Under
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson, for providing the invocation. I'd ask the clerk about the revision to tonight's agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do have a blue sheet item under the administrator's agenda. We have a new item. It's item number 2. And that item is a request to set the maximum mill levy for the Schmidt, Schmidt
The self-supporting municipal
Improvement District.
Thank you. All right, tonight we have 2 distinct parts to our meeting, planning and zoning first, followed by regular commission. I'll ask the clerk to read the statement required by state law governing the planning and zoning portion of our meeting, followed by the item on the planning and zoning consent agenda.
We would like to welcome our present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the commission are Mayor David Alvey, Commissioner Melissa Bynum at Large District 1, Commissioner Tom Burrows at Large District 2, Commissioner Gail Townsend, District 1, Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, Commissioner Christian Ramirez, District 3, Commissioner Harold Johnson Jr., District 4, Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, Commissioner Angela Markley, District 6, Commissioner Jim Walters, District 7, and Commissioner Jane Philbrick, District 8. As each petition is called this evening, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before this commission, the commission has 3 options. Number 1, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. Number 2, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. And number 3, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration together with the statement specifying the reasons for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the Planning and Zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or staff, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the mayor will ask if there are any requests to set aside items from the consent agenda. This is your time to raise your hand and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If you contacted the UG Clerk's office, that item will be set aside by the UG Clerk on your behalf. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted upon separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We would remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we would appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone who is joining by Zoom or by phone to mute your phone when not speaking to avoid background noise so you will not disturb the meeting. Once the petitioners make their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 3 minutes to state your views. This is your time to raise your hand. When your name is called, please state your name and city for the record. The mayor and commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any item on the planning and zoning agenda. I will ask if any member of the commission wish to disclose any contact with proponents or opponents on any item on the agenda.
Commissioner Burrows? Commissioner Burrows, your hand is raised.
Sorry, I was on mute. I apologize, Mayor. Thank you. I've been contacted on SP 2019-111 and SP 2020-23.
Okay, I see no other hands raised.
I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Change of zone applications, item 13216, ASEF Alon Phelan. Investments LLC, change of zone for R1B Single Family District to R2B Family District for continuation of a duplex at 520 Sandusky Avenue, recommended for denial. Item 2, 3222 Maya Diaz, change of zone from R12B Single Family District to R2B Two Family District to bring an existing non-conforming duplex into compliance at 16 South 23rd Street, recommended for approval. Special use permit applications, item number 1, SP 2019-111. Ryan Dink, McEnany, Van Cleve, and Phillips, PA. Special use permit to stockpile and process concrete material at 7241 Kyle Drive, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 2, SP 2020-23, Benjamin Stevens with Copert of Kansas, Inc., renewal of special use permit for a parking lot facility at 6130 Kansas Avenue, recommended for approval for 5 years. Item 3, SP 2020-35, Anita Shikis, renewal of a home occupational special use permit for an Airbnb at 1820 North 90th Street, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 4, SP 2020-37, Adrian Bortz with Gable Rentals LLC, renewal of special use permit for a short-term rental Airbnb at 1101, 1103, 1107, and 1109 North 79th Terrace, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 5, SP 2020, Cynthia Pesolato, renewal of a home occupation special use permit for a short-term rental Airbnb at 3107 South Second Street is recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 6, SP 2020-40, Dan Baker, renewal of a home occupational special use permit for a short-term rental Airbnb at 322 Great Cambridge Street, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 7, SP 2020-43, Julie F. Tissine, Happy Smiles Daycare, renewal of a home occupation special use permit for a daycare at 10524 Augusta Drive, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 8, SP 2020-44, Kelly Harmon, Billion Bubbles Pet Salon, renewal of a home occupation special use permit for a pet grooming operation at 7114 Parallel Parkway, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 9, SP 2020-29, Tom Wood Credit Motors, Inc., is a renewal of a special use permit for a car staging area and used to store cars bought out of state that we do not have correct documentation at 1401 State Avenue, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 10, SP 2020-50, Thomas Scott KCK Housing Authority, renewal of a special use permit for an administrative office, warehouse of parts and appliances, appliance repair, carpentry shop, and material storage, minor auto repair and maintenance at 1300 Meadowlark Lane, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 11, SP 2020-52, Jesus Rodriguez Torres, Spring Star Lawn Care, is a renewal of a special use permit for a temporary use of land to keep lawn care equipment at 1701 South 40th Street, recommended for approval for 2 years. Miscellaneous ordinances. Item number 1 is an ordinance for a special use permit for outdoor storage of used, damaged, and undamaged, operable and inoperable vehicles, boats, and construction, farm equipment, and machinery for wholesale, online, and retail auction with accessory, office, shipping, receiving, and customer parking at 8402, 8440, and 8600 Gibbs Road, recommended for approval. Item 2 is an ordinance rezoning property at 8600 Gibbs Road by changing the zoning of R1 Single Family District to MP3 Plant Heavy Industrial District, recommended for approval. The final ordinance is item number 3, is an ordinance adopting MP 2020-3 and amending the downtown master plan for civic and urban residential to downtown mixed use located at 500 Minnesota Avenue, 600 State Avenue, and 645 Nebraska Avenue, recommended for approval. Those are all items on the consent agenda.
Does any member of the commission, county administrator, or public wish to set aside any item on the planning and zoning consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the planning and zoning consent agenda will be voted on by one vote to follow recommendation of the planning commission. Commissioner Burrows, I didn't know if you had put your hand down from before or if you had to.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have 2 items. I would like to know our procedure. If these are approved by consent calendar, there's no opportunity to ask questions. But I do have a few questions on a few of the items. So I'm going to ask that 2019-111 be set aside and 2020-23 be set aside.
Okay. Where am I?
Mayor, that's under special use permit applications, item 1 and 2.
Yeah, I see. So 2019-111 and 2020-23.
That's correct, sir. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Cobbins, did we have any requests from the public to set aside an item?
No request to set aside items, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the planning and zoning consent agenda.
Kiernan, move to approve all as submitted.
Ramirez, second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
That takes us to set aside item SP-2019-111. I'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Urban Planning. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
This is an existing stockpile and processing plant that was recently purchased. They are looking to continue the operation with a few changes. Let me just go through it here for you. Again, it's located in an industrial area in the Turner community on the other side of the Kansas River, sort of near the industrial park there. You can kind of see it here right off of Caw Drive, in between Caw Drive and the Kansas River. They have requested a change to the zoning floodplain map with FEMA, and this is that application that was approved. As approved, it did change the different zones. However, some of the existing stockpiles are still in the zone, in the AE zone, and need to be removed from that. And that was part of our conditions of approval. These are some of the site photos, as you can see, sort of again across from Caw Drive. It's an active location. We added a couple of dust mitigation conditions to this project as well. They do have an existing dust mitigation plan, and we just felt that based on some of the concerns that we had of the property, that we would add on top of those a few others. They included things like rumple strips on exits so they wouldn't carry that dust into Caw Drive and onto the road, public road, dust and gravel for that matter, as well as sort of a daily wetting of all of the site. Just to keep dust mitigation down. We also added a condition of approval, I believe it is 6, let me get down to it here. Within 60 days, that was a part of the conversation with the Planning Commission, they would set up a meeting with our zoning enforcement agent who would go out there and sort of confirm that those stockpiles had been moved out of the floodplain. But with those conditions, we still recommended approval, as did the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Is the applicant available?
I didn't see them, but I'm not sure.
All right. If the applicant is available,
Yep.
not
Yes,
available.
Mr. Dink. Mr. Dink is the representative for the property owner.
Is he here?
Yeah, he's raising his hand right now.
Okay. Just present your application, Mr. Dink.
One moment, Mayor. We have to get him freed up so he can talk.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this has been an existing site. It's owned by Kansas Heavy Constructors. They are heavy road constructor. In fact, they do a lot of projects for the unified government. This is a site where they have a concrete plant, so we submitted the application. They've been in operation on the site for a number of years. Then staff informed us that a special use permit should be required for outside storage of the materials in question. And so they retained me, and we've submitted the application. There were some floodplain issues, as Mr. Hand referenced. We've addressed those. We've dealt with those with FEMA and got map amendment And we are in agreement with all of staff's recommendations. So any questions that any of you have or Commissioner Burrows has, I'd be happy to try to field that.
Thank you. Mayor, a question if I may.
Sure.
Mayor, I pulled this because I had been notified by by a number of residents in the area about the continued dust, but more importantly, the piles were, as Mr. Dink clearly stated, there was issues about it encroaching upon the floodplain and if I remember correctly, upon the railroad property. So the facility was not maintaining its boundaries with a material that needed to be addressed. I contacted the department, I think well over a year ago in reference to this location, that I had received a number of complaints from constituents in the area. I'm pleased to hear that there have been changes made in reference to the materials being cleared up, but they didn't move the materials. All they done was applied for an application with the floodplain, if I'm to understand what Mr. Dink said or stated.
Am I still on? They have moved materials. They've relocated materials in accordance with the new plan that we submitted. And so the materials that were in the floodplain have been moved. The encroachment upon the railroad right-of-way. There is a map that's attached to the application that shows, yeah, thank you, that shows where some of the stockpiles were that have been pulled back out of the railroad right-of-way. And then, of course, as part of the application, staff, we have to, within 60 days of approval, staff has to come back out and confirm that we have pulled those materials back to that zone X that you see represented there. And that's a condition of approval, which we agree with.
Commissioner Burrows, this is Gunnar Hand with Urban Planning again. And just on top of that, as is the nature with an operation like this, piles of stuff kind of move around naturally as they're moving them from one place to another. We added in the conditions that those piles had to be corralled. So those corrals will now essentially, like a retaining wall, if you will, around those big piles. So that will sort of keep them from drifting into AE, we hope. And those are what we're really going to go out there and measure and make sure that they're out of the AE zone within 60 days.
And I appreciate that, Gunnar. The only other question and comment I had was the environmental impact, the dust, as well as any contaminant products within the concrete that may seep into the ground or have been adjacent to the floodplain. I know last year we had high water, and I was just very concerned about any contaminant materials that may have been that the soil may have contracted and or the waterway may have contracted through the materials. I have some concerns. I'm not opposed to the project, but I do have some concerns about a 5-year request for a special use permit. I would like to see a shorter term, and then to ensure that the business is complying with the new requests and that they will continue to comply. That is an area that is close to a waterway, as well as a railway, as well as a R1 development for single families. And we've had some issues over the past couple of years. It was brought to my attention. So what I'm opposed to is the 5-year request for the special use permit.
And this is Ryan Dink again. I believe our approval in front of the Planning Commission was for 2. So which is the initial term under the code. So, and that kind of contemplates a test run, and then we can come back for the longer term.
Thank you. And Mr. Dink, thank you. If it is 2, I'm supportive of 2. I'm reading my recommendation here. I apologize. I lost my place. I was looking over the map to see. I do see it was for 2 years. Thank you for that clarification. I apologize for bringing that issue forward. Gunnar, that's the only questions and comments I had. I would hope that the company, as well as Mr. Dink's client, recognizes that we do believe that the area down there needs to be maintained in proper order, and that waterway is an important contributory to our drinking water, and the water is important to not only our community but others, as well as the R1 area down there for single families on the dust mitigation. If they're willing to do that, I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to question Mr. Dink this evening. And Mr. Gunnar, thank you for your work on this.
Okay, I'd ask the clerk, is there anyone present or anyone who called in would like to speak in favor or in opposition?
No one has contacted the clerk's office.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone on the call who would like to speak either in favor or in opposition?
I do not see any hands raised.
Thank you. Then if there are no further comments from the public, we'll close the public hearing. Does the petitioner like to make any closing comments?
No.
Thank you. All right, any members of the commission have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Commissioner Markley, move to approve.
Commissioner
McKiernan,
Philbrook,
second.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That takes us to set aside SB-2020-23. Staff?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. This is Gunnar Hand, the Director of Urban Planning and Land Use with Unified Government. Special Use 2020-23 is a COPART project. This is the one that's been continued multiple times, both the Planning Commission and once by the Board of Commissioners, to continue the use of surface parking lots as storage area for automobiles. Again, not too far from our last case that we just heard in that industrial area. Again, close to Kansas, the Kansas River, in between Caw Drive and Kansas River on Gibbs Road. This is the one where there had been some issues from the adjacent property owner, Bermuda's Nightclub, who I believe is in attendance, in both the owner of the COPART property and applicant, as well as Bermuda's is on the call tonight. As we understand it, and I think they can do a better job presenting it, we had asked them for quite some time, even during the Planning Commission, to come to an agreement between one another. I believe they have reached that agreement. Part of the clarification that we were hoping to see tonight from the Planning Commission hearing was to, in addition to the conditions of this project as is, were two things. One, sort of designate myself, the planning director, as the final determinant of said resolution. There had been some confusion in previous approvals where we had told to an applicant and then an adjacent property owner to come to resolution, and then who decided that resolution was another point of contention. And so I think for clarification, it would be benefit to everyone if we sort of made myself that determiner of the resolution. Again, there's a storm drainage issue between the two properties along the shared property line. Secondly, I understand that they have sent us in the last few days a draft of that resolution on what a potential solution could look like. We need time from my engineers as well as Public Works engineers to review that document. So we would also ask a second condition be applied where they submit that. I think the last continuance said 90 days. It's been 60 days since that time. So we would ask that within 30 days, they submit that to our Development Review Committee, which is essentially just not to have it go through DRC, but is essentially the mechanism by which we can bring all the approval agencies together and review that resolution document. We'll set up a dummy DRC number and then run it through all the different agencies and confirm that it is an acceptable solution. And so with those two conditions, we still recommend approval. But I think and here's some pictures of that issue that you can see here on a rainy day. So with that, I think I believe the applicant's here to say a few words.
So essentially, Gunnar, what you're saying is that the points of contention will be left to the discretion of administration, of you and staff, to work this out. And when we approve this, we're basically authorizing you, and they are agreeing that that's going to be the arrangement?
Correct.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to come forward?
This is Anna Kirstelich. Can you hear me okay? Hello?
Yes, Ann, we hear you fine.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I had a lot of trouble last time, so I just wanted to make sure that I resolved that problem this time. So thank you for your patience. So yes, just wanted to give you an update. Copart did engage an engineer to prepare grading and erosion control plans in order to address the drainage issue that Gunnar just showed you. And Ben Stevens of Copart and Sam Yazdani of Bermuda's discussed the plans, and Bermuda's attorney, Tuck Duncan, reviewed them as well. He approved those plans in a phone call to me on Monday, which was the 22nd. And I had sent the plans to planning staff last Friday, the 19th, and staff have acknowledged receipt. So Copart is prepared to work with staff to address and resolve the drainage issue. The one clarification we would like to request is in the additional condition added by the Planning Commission on the 11th. If we could replace the phrase "prevent any water runoff" with "resolve water runoff problems." The purpose of that is to maintain the intent of the condition without imposing an unreasonable standard on Copart.
Gunnar, does that seem reasonable?
We'd be amenable to that change.
Gunnar, I know I haven't raised my hand, but would you mind saying all of the provisions that we've now added to this document? Verbiage, you mind?
Yes, of course. I'll start with the motion from the Planning Commission that Ms. Kristelich just asked to be slightly changed. And it's a little long-winded, and then I'll go to the two that I was requesting. So the request from the applicant was to revise the motion for approval from the Planning Commission to read: Copart provide a drainage system within the next 90 days to resolve water runoff from their property to the Bermuda property and to correct any previous drainage problems from the Copart property based off the testimony from Sarah White in the Public Works Department and the engineers for the application, and Bermuda's would work with planning engineering and Public Works engineering. So that revision changed 90 days to prevent any to 90 days to resolve water runoff, as I understood it, which I think still maintains the intent from the Planning Commission as well as our needs. The two additions from staff would be to clarify that resolution would make me the final determinant of reaching said agreement, which essentially means that I'll be the one to decide after review by Public Works and my engineers that the proposed solution is sufficient. So if we have any changes, we'll go around, do a round of reviews with the applicant, confer with Bermuda's again, and sort of move forward with that. Again, we had some past history with some confusion on said solutions. And then secondly, within that 90 days, I think we are now 60 days from when this was made in May, or we will be close to 60 days when this was made. So we would ask that they submit the plans that are on the screen right now, essentially within 30 days for our review, and that they submit that directly to DRC. And so we'll essentially take that into our intake process, review it, get back to them if we have any comments, and move forward. There is a chance here that they're basically, and let me go back to my other presentation. So they're essentially going to grade along the property line here. And if what they propose to grade goes over a certain amount of cubic feet, they're going to need an additional grading permit. I can't say if that's going to happen or not because we haven't reviewed those plans in detail with all the advisory things. But again, I think it would behoove us to understand that there could be things that come out of that review, like a grading permit. So, and that's again part of the review process.
And so do you believe if they do need another grading permit, that's going to be a problem?
No, that can be done administratively. That's not an issue.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there anyone present who'd like to speak in favor, or anyone on the line who would like to speak in favor of this? And Gunnar, we got to know whether that change of language, it seems to me that to make that change of language, since it is a significant difference, otherwise it would not have been raised. Does that require it to go back to planning and zoning to have the planning and zoning recommend that change of language?
Mr. Mayor, I think the question in my mind is whether that change is substantial enough to require 8 votes to incorporate that from the Planning Commission's recommendation, or can it pass solely with 6 votes?
Okay.
I guess to make that determination, it'd be helpful to have maybe a little more explanation from Mr. Han as how important the Planning Commission relied on incorporating that language, because if it was a key part in what they did, even though it's an unreasonable expectation, that would be a change, material change from their conditions, which I believe would require 8 votes for the commission to approve the special use permit.
Yeah, so perhaps the question is, Gunnar, is in development practice, is that actually a difference in language and difference in standards that is common?
This is Gunnar, the Director of Urban Planning. I guess I'll take them one at a time. I think to amend their motion for approval from prevent any to resolve, I would see that as a minor change. I think it still addresses exactly what their intent was for this, which was for them to reach an agreement amongst themselves and then allow the planning department and the public works department to review that resolution. I think the 2 additional ones, one to clarify that the director of planning be the final determinant of that solution, is above and beyond that motion that they made. But I think it was, we felt it was important that we clarify it based on previous case history. I mean, the truth of it is it's just kind of the nature of adding conditions in a meeting, or a motion to approval with an additional condition included within it. But I also don't see that as a major change. It's just designating a single person as opposed to review by 2 different agencies. And we've worked through that with Public Works, and they're fine with that, if that means anything to anyone. And then finally, the third about additional 30 days, we believe that that's in the spirit and still within the same time frame of the 90 days from Planning Commission to submit something. I believe the applicant's ready to submit even like now, to move this forward as soon as tomorrow, to get it into our DRC process. So with that, I could reasonably see how it would require 8 votes. I don't think it needs to go back to Planning Commission. It's gone around in circles in the Planning Commission at least 3 times. And we've gotten it finally to the point where the adjacent property owners have agreed to come to a resolution. So I think we're all ready.
Mr. Moore?
I think those two things together are significant enough that it requires 8 votes to approve.
Okay, I think we will have to defer to the attorney on this. Let's, again, is there anyone like to speak in the public in favor or opposition? Did we have anyone sign up, Madam Clerk?
No.
The clerk's office did not have anyone sign up, but I think we have someone hand that's raised. Tuck Duncan.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Duncan?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you. Would it be appropriate to find out what Commissioner Burrow's concerns were when he withdrew this so that I could respond to everything at one time?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan, my purpose for pulling this is there has been much discussion. As you can tell, there's some ambiguity as to what kind of settlement is going to happen here this evening. The fact that the Copart was behind in asking for a special use permit by about 8 months, and that raised a little bit of concern. But I just want to ensure that all parties are in full agreement, because once this is settled and once this moves forward, there's very little remedy opportunities for the Bermudas that is being impacted by the water flow and or the standing water caused by the construction of Copart. If these businesses are going to coexist, I would hope that we only see them when they come to renew permits and not see them through planning and zoning dealing with ongoing issues. And so that's my purpose for bringing this forward, to get all the questions answered, I's dotted, T's crossed.
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you for giving us the opportunity, and I will be brief. As counsel for Copart's indicated, we had a conversation earlier this week. My client, who I think is also on the Zoom, has been dealing with Copart's with regard to putting together a schematic by which to try to prevent the excessive water. Any means 100%, that is probably unreasonable. And there wasn't much time the night of the Planning Commission to actually work on that language with all the parties. So we don't have any problem with addressing this as to resolve water runoff, because that's what we've always been trying to do, which, as I understand it, will take the water to the north. We have no problem with the planning director being the final arbiter, as it were, with regard to whether the plan and its capability of accomplishing that which I believe he understands very well is the problem here with regard to the water flow situation. And I thought the plan was submitted last Friday, but I'm sure counsel for Copart's will resubmit it, if not this week, first part of next week, and the 30 days can be accomplished. So I would say the parties have been working in good faith. We think this is a good resolution, and I would suggest that my guess is there'll probably be 8 votes, and therefore that issue, as Mr. Mortar indicated, is probably would be moot, in as much as the parties have come to a conclusion. And I want to thank the city staff in particular for their working with everybody to try to herd these cats in such a way as we could get this matter resolved. So thank you very much. And we would ask that you approve it with these additional revisions, conditions, and modifications.
All right. I'm assuming there are no further comments or questions from the public. We'll close the public hearing. Do any members of the commission have any questions or comments?
Yes, this is Commissioner Philbrook. And it is my district, and I would tell you that that area down there has been an issue long before Copart's ever came in. And having said that, I am very pleased to see that Mr. Hand was capable of working with both parties to come to a resolution. And I want to thank them for all that. Thank you for all that work. And I want to move for approval of this with the stipulations added in, the 3 stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson, Commissioner Johnson, Kane, Commissioner Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes the planning and zoning portion of the meeting. Now move to the regular portion of the agenda. Any member of the commission or county administrator wish to set aside any item on the regular consent agenda. If an item is not set aside, items on the regular consent agenda will be voted on by one vote.
McKiernan, move to approve all as submitted.
Ramirez, second.
Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
All right, thank you. We'll now move to the administrator's agenda. Item number 1 is a resolution to set a public hearing date to consider a redevelopment project plan for the downtown campus. Turn it over to Mr. Bach.
Mayor, the public hearing date is the item that is on the agenda tonight. If you would like an explanation in more detail, I can ask Ms. Carter, who is here as our Economic Development Director, to explain it. But the item we are voting on is just setting a public hearing date.
Good. Any comments or questions from the commission? Mr. McKiernan?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to say I move to approve this item as submitted to set the public hearing date.
Markley, second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That now takes us to the blue sheet item. It's a request to set the mill levy for the self-supported municipal improvement district. Mr. Bach?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to recognize Kathleen Von Atchen, our Chief Financial Officer, to come make a presentation regarding the request from the downtown shareholders regarding the SMID.
Good evening, this is Kathleen Von Atchen, and tonight we're asking that you reconsider the maximum mill levy for the self-supporting municipal improvement district, or the SMID. During the budget workshop last week, we asked for an extension of the current mill rate, which was 9.9572. We overlooked the fact that the SMID submitted a budget proposal on March 15th, and which in their letter, they requested a mill rate of 12.5. In their budget document, the budget document requires $203,000 in property tax assessment funds. That's roughly $4,000 more than what the maximum mill rate they that you all approved would generate. So at this point, we're basically asking for you to set the maximum mill rate at the amount requested in their cover letter of 12.5. It doesn't obligate you in terms of what the mill rate will ultimately be once we approve the budget. The 12.5 mill rate will generate $250,000, which is $50,000 or $51,000 more than they would be receiving right now, far in excess of the additional $4,000 that they supplied in their budget document. So the motion is to set the maximum mill levy for the SMID at 12.5 for publication, which we'll be submitting tomorrow. And further action on the actual mill rate will take place at the July 16th budget adoption hearing.
Thank you, Kathleen. And to be clear, the mill levy only applies to those within the district, the defined boundaries of the district. It is not citywide, correct?
That's correct. Those businesses within the downtown shareholders area or SMID area would be the ones who would pay that higher, that mill rate. Yes.
Thank you. All right. Any members of the commission have any questions or comments? Not seeing any.
Commissioner McKiernan does.
Okay, Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you so much. I talked with Jason Norbury, who is the executive director of Downtown Shareholders last week, and he was the one who alerted me to the fact that we had missed his request to raise the maximum mill levy. But in our conversation, he said that he was going to work along with his board to keep any mill levy increase absolutely as low as it possibly could be. And that even though he was asking to set the maximum at 12.5, he would work to keep it just fractional units above the current mill rate and keep it as low as possible. Based on the fact that he's pledged that and the fact that he's going to work with his board, I would be in favor of moving forward with this as presented.
Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We have a
Commissioner
motion.
Barkley, second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
No.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
The vote is 9-1. That motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes our meeting for the evening. We are adjourned.